Okay, my name is Bill Alexander. I'm a writer, producer, director, actor, camera guy, editing, chief cook and bottle washer on low-budget indie movies. My company's Travel and Light Production. I've completed 2 feature-length movies, more shorts than I can count, and I've worked on a lot of other people's projects as well.
My name is Keith Collins. I would say I'm a filmmaker to cut everything real short. And I usually do a lot of stunt coordination for a lot of indie films and fight sequences. I've been doing films probably for about 10 years, and I've directed a lot of shorts, like always, and done fight choreography and stunts for features.
I'm Gary Jones, and I'm a director, producer, special effects writer. Done my latest movie is Axe Giant: The Wrath of Paul Bunyan, which is, I think we're screening tonight in one of the rooms, which is an independent feature that did over the last couple of years. And I've done a couple other films, sci-fi channel movies like Mosquito, and I did Boogeyman 3 and a bunch of things like that. So a lot of creature feature movies.
Cool.
So I'm wondering if we start with maybe, I guess let's ask them what you guys would like to find out about directing, or what, besides, we've got stories, right? We all tell stories, or like how we do what we do, or, so we can kind of play off.
Well, is anybody else here, do we have any other directors in the house right now? Cool. Anybody who wants to be a director? Come on, don't be shy. You can tell us. Look at this guy.
I always wanted to be a director. I think the thing, I think we should just touch on why we're doing it. I mean, one of the things when I was growing up, and how I became a director is I love movies, and I grew up and just sit in front of the TV and watch, Godzilla movies or Bridge on the River Kwai with the parents, wanted the action movies. And I always loved movies, and I always thought, wow, how do you do that? How would you? It would be great to do that. And then I remember discovering one day there was a documentary on TV about, it was behind the scenes of making Gone with the Wind. And then I got to see the cameras and the crew, and then you see the fake set. So I started to see the magic behind the curtain. And I got so fascinated with that, and I thought, wow, that's how they do that. It's not real, but it seems so real. And so I tried to find out, well, how do you do it? And I looked around, well, what's the job? It all seemed to go to the director, who kind of was in control of this world. So as kids growing up, we were always like, you'd set up your G.I. Joes or your toys, but you would be in control of like a universe. And I thought, that would be great. That's the guy, that's the job. And I've done a lot of other jobs before I got to the director's chair, mainly to get on sets so I could figure out how to do the job. But that was kind of how I started, and then got into directing, and was really about watching movies and loving movies and wanting to be there, with, in Star Wars on that planet or wherever, it was just, I always thought the director, he sets the stage and gets everybody together and, and decides what's going to happen. That was always cool. So that's where I went. That's what got me there.
Cool.
What got you there?
What got me there, I was a sheltered kid, and the window to my world was movies. So I watched movies all the time, and at first, because I watched so many movies, in my mind, I thought I was going to grow up and be a ninja. Then I realized that you can't be a ninja. And then,
in the movies you can.
Right, in the movies you can. And every time I watched a movie, that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. And then it dawned on me that, if I'm in movies, I could be all those things. And that's when I was like, I want to be in movies. But then I had to figure out what I wanted to do. And at first it was fighting stunts, because I was in martial arts, all my life. So I started making fight scenes. That was like my first thing, just fights and fights and fights. And eventually, after doing fight scenes and sort of coming up with choreography and things like that, I was like, well, there's more to movies than just fights. I probably should make a movie around the fight. So then I started thinking of stories that could go with the fights, and eventually worked my way to making full movies and, making whole story ideas with the movie. And that, from there, it sort of just took off. I wanted to be in movies. I wanted to be a director. And I started going on sets and, seeing what other people would do and try to create my own, workflow to make my own movie. And took off from there.
In my head, I've been making movies ever since the first one I saw. I can't tell you what that movie was, but it's like my whole life I've always looked at movies differently from just normal people watching a movie. I was always able to see that what was happening wasn't going on inside my TV set. It wasn't going on the screen, because life doesn't have editing cuts and commercials don't pop up when you're walking down the street. So I knew there was something else going on. When I was about 8 years old, I wrote my first book, and it was a dinosaur book. It wasn't like a story or anything, but of course it was about dinosaurs, and it was written, and everything that I wrote, I didn't realize it was more in a screenplay format than like something a person would read for entertainment or information. It was a skeleton of what a finished product would be, like a script is. And I didn't even know I was doing it. It just came naturally to me. And if I were in a creative writing course, the teacher would say, this is really a good story. I like your characters, but I'm having trouble visualizing where they are and, like the surroundings and all that. And it's because it was in my head, it wasn't on the page because it hadn't been shot by camera yet. And it was when I started to realize that making a movie of what I was writing is where I wanted to go. Then I started trying to learn what the screenplay format was, and I got into it from the writing standpoint first. I realized that after working on a few sets with some independent directors, that if I wanted to bring them in on the project, I'm going to be slaved to their camera availabilities, so it's best if I learn how to run a camera. And it's also best, okay, my actors, what's an actor have to do? Well, it's best if I learn how to act. So I took some basics in acting. I learned how to run camera more through doing than through any kind of class, although I have had some, I've had some education since. And I learned some things. I got some books about how to break down a script and how to plot out a shoot schedule and, arrange for all your props and costumes and everything and all your fight choreography and everything. And just when you look at it, it's like Stephen King described people's interest in horror as wanting to slow down the car wreck, where you want to see all of the twisted metal and all the blood and all, breaking down a script is kind of the same thing. You want to see every nerdy little detail that most other people don't really care about unless they're going to pick it apart and say that, your continuity's off. But you're going to want to pull every little piece out and put it in a way that when you finally edit your movie, they all drop into place. And that's what you do in your breakdown. But it was just, like I said, I started from a writing start, and from there got accustomed to working with cameras and working on set with actors, and just let it blossom from there.
It was interesting when you were talking about what you're writing, and how you didn't write a story, you wrote shots. You were like what you saw. We had to write a story in class. I was maybe 6th grade or something. And so I wrote a story about, aliens land and, we're fighting aliens. And I wrote this thing out, and I didn't realize I did exactly what you just said. As I saw the movie in my head, and I didn't, I'm thinking, well, writing, you just write what you're thinking. So I'm writing shots, big spaceship lands, then they had a space. Hey, and if I put a lot of spaces here, I can get all 10 pages pretty fast, right? So I wrote shots, the alien shoots, the guy is zapped and his eyes boil out of his head, alien steps over. And I remember I got it done, I go, this is good, I'm a writer, I could write books. I turned it in, and I got crushed by the teacher. She wrote on it, I get it back, there's a big F on there, and she wrote on there, I am so confused. What is going on here? And so I'm like, I guess I don't know how to write, And then I remember years later when I got in to start doing movies and I read that first script, I went, I wrote a script and she didn't know it. She had no clue what I was doing. And but it was that same thing. When I would have to tell a story or write something, I would almost describe it like I was watching a movie, like as pieces. And that's kind of how I learned too, was watching the movies, but then realizing it was those pieces. And then you started to break it down. Well, there's the wide shot of everybody, Bridge on the River Kwai. They're all marching, through the jungle. and the music, right? It's all of those elements. And so then all of a sudden now you see the guy's feet just marching, in place with the shoes all ragged, and I'm thinking, it's a close-up of the feet. Why would they show that? So I started to analyze, that and break it down. So I learned, we could never afford, I had 5 brothers and sisters, we could never afford to go to college. Parents, didn't have the money. So I would break things down, I watched movies, is how I learned how to make movies. And it took me a long time to figure it out. But then there was those magic moments of once you figure it out, that's how it works. Okay, you go from a wide shot to a close-up, for the emotion and stuff.
Admit it. You're the one who killed him. You seduced him, gained his confidence. And then when he wasn't looking, you reached into your purse and without conscience or remorse, you pulled out a gun and shot him. And cut. Curious? Visit theindygathering.com, a film festival, and so much more.
Introducing SoundForge Pro Mac, a 2-track audio editor reinvented by Mac users for Mac users, redesigned specifically for OS X. SoundForge Pro Mac features an elegantly refined interface. See everything at once, or toggle the view to see only the features you need. Record and edit high-resolution multi-channel audio with speed and precision. Process audio with a wide range of unique and powerful tools. Sony Creative Software now brings its industry-leading expertise and innovative product development philosophy to the Mac. SoundForge Pro Mac enhances your production workflow. It's the ideal complement to any digital audio workstation or non-linear editing environment. Redefining audio editing. SoundForge Pro Mac.
It was just interesting, taking off that, it's very similar things, you see things as a director differently. Imagine if you go, and I've done this before, I'll go to a wedding, big fancy church, and I'll be sitting there, and it's taking forever, and it's just, you're waiting and waiting. I start looking around and go, oh, I can make a movie in here. This is a pretty cool set. And then you start imagining things, and I found myself doing that everywhere, even in this room. Well, how would I shoot this room? So I think if you're a director and you're interested in movies, you want to direct, you always have that eye. I think Stephen King said he doesn't care what a director thinks. He wants to know what the director sees. So you're seeing, what are you seeing? You're seeing it this way, you're seeing this, and how you put those pieces together. Another thing was, growing up, I could never talk in front of people like this, ever. In front of class, I was just too shy. And I never realized that I would have to go in front of 65 people and direct and move people around. I remember that first day, I was ready to make my movie, I never had to do it. And I walked out on set, and I prepped everything, and I walked out in there, and I went, oh, shit.
Everybody's looking at you.
They're all looking at me, and then I realized something very important at that moment as a director, for me as a director. We're sort of telling you guys how we direct and what we, you know, the stuff behind it, but, and I realized at that moment is that they take everything from you. If you don't know what you're doing, and you don't got a clue, and you're stumbling, they all know it, and they all kind of kick back, and then it becomes chaos. It's like a battle, you know, you gotta have the general, you gotta have, you know, the sergeant, you gotta have that platoon lined up. And so I realized at that moment I told people what we were gonna do. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and I rattled off all my shots, and here's how we're gonna do it, we're gonna do this, and then we went to work, and it was like kind of a weird magic. And I realized, I guess I can talk in front of people if I've got something to say that, you know, I felt comfortable with what it was. But the actor thing, I thought the same thing. I thought, well, I should take some acting classes. And I attended one acting class, figured I could learn how to talk to the actors. It was helpful, but I also found it helped me more than anything was I met all the actors before I worked with them separately. And it's the psychology thing. Okay, well, this person's a little shy, this one's a little overbearing, this one needs me to whisper, this one needs me to yell. Because I made some huge mistakes on my first movies where I'd be sitting back here, you know, and they're over there and I'm yelling, okay, run to the left, okay, do it faster, 20% faster, you know, I'm yelling. And there's probably nothing more infuriating for like an actor or performer who's like up there naked, ready to be filmed, to hear someone in the background going, laugh, right? Completely threw them off, you know, and I realized early on, it just, you know, some actors just shut down. So I had to find out what each actor needed. And then when I found the one that said, Gary, just tell me 20%, I know how to do that, just give me a percentage. So I did all that shorthand, you know, way ahead of the game. And when I walked on set, I didn't waste time, you know, like explaining a million things. This actor, I'd have to whisper. The other guy would go, 20%, and boom, he'd run 20% less, you know. So it was about figuring out those tricks of the trade. So ultimately, you want to get the movie you want, and your energy level has to be, you know, 200% more than everybody else. Because if you sit down, you start yawning, they do the same thing, nothing gets done. Yeah,
You're the director. They're going to do what you.
It's it.
They'll follow you.
Take it from you, but.
I used to call that dating the actors, an actress's life first. You sort of want to get to know them so that way you can have the character you want in front of the camera. So.
Do you, when you get with them, I always would say, okay, here's how I see it, but I want to hear what you see first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best thing you can do is ask questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, when you were talking about you stumbled a little bit and you're like, don't be afraid to ask them, what do you think about this scene? What do you see your character doing in this scene? How do you feel about the relationships going on here? You know, I mean, you can always fall back on that. If you're like,
Yeah.
feel free to ask them and let the, you know, 2 heads are better than 1. If you got 65 heads on the set,
Right.
you know, that can only make your movie
Usually
better.
helps the character too, because it gives a little bit of them in it, so that makes it more personal.
Well, you know, the big thing is that you come there as a director, you know, you're looking at all the pieces. And even if you wrote it, you're going, I know what Carol's going to say here, and Bob has got to say this.
Right.
Well, once you cast that movie, and that actress that's playing Carol, all she's going to do is figure out, well, who Carol is and how she's bringing the character. She's not thinking about the lighting or the camera work,
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And the other guys are doing the same thing. I found on all my movies, almost every single one of them, it's happened, that they come there and those actors know that character more than me, even if I wrote it, because they invested something in it that I never did. You know, like I thought, okay, what would she say here? Well, the monster's going to, you know, big giant monster's going to show up, and you're going to go, what in the hell is that? You know, but she would say this or she would do that. Once those actors invest in the character, they like bring so much. So one of the things I learned is sometimes you've got to throw your dialogue or a little bit of your script out, just a bit, you know, and because they give you something that you didn't think of, you know. It's like all this, and it makes you, again, directing's about getting the best people around you and make you look good. If you know the job better than everybody else, and that's the crew you hire, okay, well, maybe it'll work. But I always found, like, I got to get people that know their job better than me, and I try to know all the jobs, but I try to just make sure it's like you surround yourself, and I keep it open so that a suggestion can come through. If we hit the wall and, oh, we're supposed to shoot here, but now the room's closed, now we got to shoot in the hallway, and I can't figure out how to make the scene work in the hallway, well, the grip might go, hey, Garrett, why why don't we shoot right here, you know, or, hey, what if I pull the ceiling tiles out and you can just shoot straight up? If you nullify the crew and you're a screamer, and I've worked with some directors just as a crew person that are like screaming and hollering and really like a brutal, you shut down, you know,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you don't get help. And I learned, for me anyways, I like to make it a fun, creative atmosphere, and I always feel like if we have fun making it, they'll have fun watching it. And I always say that at the beginning of every one of my movies. We're gonna have fun making it, they'll have fun watching it. And then I proceed to yell at everybody and tell them what to do, but they're okay, you know, it's like, we got it, let's go, you know, so it's like, you find those things that work for you, but hardest thing for me, I was gonna ask you guys, one of the hardest things for me doing the movie is working with the actors, in that I'll have 5 people in a scene, and they all have different ideas, and, you know, you gotta shoot the scene, you've got an hour and a half. What do you do? I mean, I try to, I block it with the actors, here's what I saw, I clear everybody else out of the room, and I say, all right, this is what I'm seeing. Now, you guys know who you are, you're gonna come through that door, show me what you think, and then separate it out, and it takes time. How do you guys deal, like, or what's one of the hardest things for you guys when you're directing, you know, dealing with?
The hardest thing that I'd probably say dealing with, I feel like time. I feel like I'm always fighting against time. So I usually plan out everything, and I usually, like you say, you have a vision of what you want. But what usually happens is what I usually see is the actor will do something, and I'll be like, that's better. I'll do that. I'll take that.
You take it,
Yeah,
because
take
you
it
just got a
because-
gift.
Yeah.
You do something, you see it in your mind like it should go like this, but then you see it and you're like, boy, that's robotic, or it doesn't work, or and then they'll do something and you'll be like, that's natural. That's actually what I'm meant to do. But,
Right.
it's-
And they gave it to you.
yeah, they give it to you. So it's always like a battle for me to try to write what I think should happen, but really the actor usually does it better. And at first it was hard for me to let it go.
Yeah, 'cause
because you're so in love with
it's
what
yours,
you've done.
yeah.
But
Say my words. you know,
Eventually,
like,
you're
Tarantino doesn't get yelled at. They say his words,
Yeah.
damn it. 'Cause they won't say mine.
Eventually, you're like, you know what? They're an actor or they're an actress. They know what they're doing. So you start letting them put their emotion and who they are into it, and it makes your piece as a whole better. So
Yeah, the one thing that I learned kind of early on, when you're in pre-production, you have your script pretty much finalized, you have your breakdown, you have your auditions, you're bringing people in. What do you do when you audition people? You want to bring in the best, most talented people, the most dedicated people for your project that you can get. They're there, why aren't you trusting them? If they got a really pinpoint, precise idea of who their character is and the arc that they follow as they're going through this story, you're an idiot if you don't trust them. You got to believe that they know that character a lot better than you do, because you may have written it, you may have been writing the script for the last 2 years, and you may have broken it down and you know details, but you know the whole story where they know that person and they know the relationships and the tumult that they've gone through in their lives, so you got to trust them. Otherwise, there's no point in trying to bring in talented people.
Welcome to Movie Outline 3, your first step to a successful screenplay. Movie Outline is powerful screenplay development software for both the amateur and the professional screenwriter, which uses the simple technique of step outlining to build your story, characters, and screenplay scene by scene. With Movie Outline, you can easily plan and customize your story structure, color code acts, rearrange scenes, develop and track characters, format your screenplay, and compare your own story to successful Hollywood movies. Movie Outline is the ultimate writer's tool. Visit www.movieoutline.com to download the free demo today.
This August, come to the film festival where East meets West.
It's an incredible showcase of over 75 films from around the world.
And it's more than just a film festival.
It's a place where filmmakers can gather together with the audience
for one amazing weekend
to celebrate the power,
the drama,
the joy,
the magic of independent film.
The Indie Gathering International Film Festival.
It's so much more than you ever imagined.
Without trust, where are you? Especially in a low-budget independent movie, you don't have any money. Trust is what you're running on. But one thing that you mentioned earlier, when you got on your first set, the way I dealt with it, the first time I stepped on, I was directing and running camera. Fortunately, I was not acting in front of the camera, but I was everything behind the camera.
So you had a prop you could hide behind and figure stuff out. Hold on, I got to get
Well,
focused.
I was not hiding. There was only one person to look at, so I couldn't hide. The camera was not big enough. It was about that size, so it wasn't big enough for me to hide behind. But I realized, what are they looking for in me? They're all looking at me. Oh, they want me to be director. I guess I have to act like a director. So I was an actor playing a role. The role was director. How would I be a director? And I just kind of built my persona as a director on the set of that first movie I was working on after watching some other directors I'd worked with. Some of them I got positive ideas. Okay, I like that. I'm going to try that when I'm running my own set. Others were negative ideas. Okay, I will never do that. I'm not going to treat people that way or whatever. And I allowed this persona, this director persona. And people who know me in other walks of life are like, who are you? Because it's just natural now. If I get down a set and it's my set, or even if it's the set of somebody who's directing and it's somebody I've worked with before, I'm just running camera. I have you create a persona for yourself where you can be the guy that you have to be. If you are just running camera, if you are just a script supervisor, or if you are the director, you have to be something that they're expecting you to be. So, you get to play a role even when you're not in front of the camera.
One of the perks of being a director is, you get to put that vision together, you get all the people together, and you make that movie. And if you've done it well, and it's a good movie and it's well received, your name's right there. Directed by.
Right.
So you get the credit, but it also goes the other way. Directed by, and if the movie stinks, so it's like it's that weird balance of like wanting to get a lot of different personalities, a lot of talented people on board, but also being protective of like you got a vision. So now if you've cast it correctly, meaning with the cast and the crew, cast the crew correctly, like is it a DP you can work with, or lighting guys, you're shooting your own stuff, but I work a lot with the DP, and I've worked with some that just would not put the camera where I want them to put it. They said, well, my job is to set the frame. Your job is to direct the actors. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, and I have to set the guy straight. You don't understand. I spent 6 months designing the movie. I have a storyboard and a shot list of every single cut in the movie. That's kind of how crazy I go with stuff. And then I throw it all away on the set because a lot of times I don't need it, but I've done it. And so you got to cast your DP, the lighting, wardrobe, everything. And if you cast correctly and you set the stage, they will do 100 times better work than they've ever done before, because it's all in them, and your job is to pull it out of them as a director. So you get that real bonus of like, if it's, your film is great, hey, it's yours. If it stinks, it's your fault. So, and it goes with the territory. I accept that, and so always try to come up with good ideas. That's like a key thing, even if you're directing, a sci-fi movie. Keep coming up with good ideas, because ideas will win out, eventually. They always need the next great idea. And if you're the guy that can generate them, then maybe you can be the guy that can direct them. So I got pushed into, I didn't never want to write. I always wanted to get that perfect script, but then I had to go out and actually do it myself on my own projects just to get what I wanted. But it's painful for me to sit there and write, because I feel like I'll write 2 lines, okay, Bunyan smashes in the cabin, and everybody scrambles. Great, now I just want to go get up and shoot it, But I got to finish the script, so I take my hat off for people that write and direct. And I found that most of my friends that are directors, or writer-directors, have a lot more opportunities, and they might just sell their script, which provides them, enough money to live on until they get the next movie. So I would say if you're a director, you know, get good at that, but you know what? You see things, you know, you create pictures, so come up with really cool, interesting ideas and get them down on paper. Any war stories you've got?
Oh, I got a couple. One that I don't know if anybody's ever been, how you doing, Mike?
Keep me out of it.
You're out of this one, I promise.
So this guy his name begins with M. He walks in a bar and...
On the first feature-length movie I was working on, you probably heard the story. It's called Shades. It's a kind of a sci-fi paranoid thriller. There are aliens among us, and they look just like us until you get too close, and then it's too late to run. While this one guy is running for his life, he's being chased by these two aliens, and the only thing that he knows about them is that they wear dark sunglasses and they talk on cell phones. So he's hiding in the woods, he's hiding behind a tree, and he hears footsteps coming up behind him. And looks around the tree, and it's a guy wearing sunglasses, and he's talking on a cell phone. So he jumps out, he grabs the guy, throws him down. Why are you following me? No, it's just a guy walking in the woods. Take my wallet, take my watch. We were shooting this in the, I don't know who else is familiar with the area, but we were in by Horseshoe Lake and Shaker Lakes. And Shaker Heights they have very diligent police there. Well paid, very professional. And when somebody yells, "Take my wallet, take my watch," in loud voices, it echoes across the lake and people pick up their phones. And as we're shooting the scene, we can hear woo, sirens going by, woo. We're down in the woods, maybe 200 yards from the road, but we can still hear the sirens. And well, we'd set up outside in the grass outside of the woods, and there was, of course, we had our equipment out there, and I could hear this police radio, "There's a black duffel bag, this must be the place." I was like, oh, guys, hold on a second. I walk out, I'm carrying my camera. I see a couple of cops getting out. One guy's got his hand on his sidearm. I'm like, please don't shoot me. We're shooting a movie, we're down here, I'll show you where the script is. Now, the guy who's playing the lead in the movie is a stand-up comic. He's a really good actor, he's really a funny guy. But when he grabbed the guy and threw him on the ground, he's sitting on his stomach. And they're still laying in the dirt, and he's sitting on his stomach. And of course, Chris is laying on his back, and his shirt's all pooched up where Storman had grabbed him. And the cop comes walking down, and I say, "See, it's in the script. Take my wallet, take my watch. It's all written down." And he looks at Storman and says, "What are you doing?" And Storman says, "It's okay, officer, I'm wearing a condom." And I'm like, my brother is not going to bail me out. My brother is not going to bail me out. I just know. And poor Sora, she was playing one of the aliens. She's standing there, oh my God. She's all terrified, and Storm's like, it's no big deal. Well, fortunately, the cop had a sense of humor, and he laughed and said, next time, inform the police, which I've done since. Inform the police, let them know what you're doing, get a proper permit, or even just a verbal, okay, that's fine, we'll let the cops know, we'll let the residents know if there's any kind of a call-in about that. And as I was walking the officer back to his car, I saw that there were 3 cruisers and 2 paddy wagons, and the SWAT team was there. I mean, they were ready to go into combat over 5 people with a video camera. And since then, I learned that, my second movie, I approached the police. I was given the use of a police cruiser and a cop for the day, and he allowed my actors to drive an official police cruiser at one point at 80 miles an hour down a side street. And then he and another couple of the local officers arrived at the cemetery set for a cop's funeral, and they were in full dress uniforms with M16s firing a ceremonial salute. And all for free, all because I approached them ahead of time. I was respectful and professional, and it's amazing what you can do in a small town if you act like you're a professional. There it is, I'm acting like a director, and it works. But it wasn't as much fun as Storman sitting on Chris's stomach.
You two have disrupted my classroom for the last time.
What are you gonna do about it? Spank us?
She can't spank us. It's against the law.
Spanking would be too easy. I'm gonna cause more permanent damage.
And cut. Curious? Visit theindygathering.com, a film festival, and so much more.
You gotta have a story.
The story is almost similar. Actually, I thought I did everything right because I let the police know. We were filming in an alleyway, and they said it was okay. So we were. What happens is there's a criminal, and we have two cops, actors. They're supposed to catch him in the alleyway, and they pull a gun out and pretty much read his rights, cuff him, and everything else. So we go through that scene, and they pull out a gun. There's a coffee shop that actually looks in the alleyway. So what ended up happening was, instead of them calling the cops, a group of guys come out, and they pretty much come out with sticks, and they're like, "Are you okay?" to the person who's getting held up, and we're like, "Wait a minute, it's a movie. It's a movie. We have nothing to worry about." We called the cops and everything. They stood there for a moment. We pulled out a script. They saw the camera finally, like some of the camera guys looking like, and then they're like, "Oh," they walk away, and I was like, that was a bad situation that almost happened, and we called the cops. They weren't even gonna call the cops, they were just gonna beat us up. So
Yeah, so the cops would have gotten it all, yeah, a bunch of guys got beat up in an alley. Oh, it's just that movie.
Yeah. It was crazy. That's probably the weirdest story I can tell, because like I really thought we did what we were supposed to. We called the cops and said, "Okay, yeah, you can film there, everything is cool." But yeah, some patrons thought they were gonna beat us up.
We had, it was on the first movie we did, it was a movie called Mosquito, and this was back in 90-something, 93 I think it was, and we had to shoot, there was a sequence in there where, once again, it's the whole thing where, the script, mosquitoes attack the park, and everybody's having a good time at the park, and the mosquitoes attack, and our heroes show up, excuse me, and everybody's dead on the ground, and we shot the sequence. I didn't have enough money to really show the attack. It was in the script, I had this big attack plan, but we didn't have enough money, so I'm like, what am I gonna do? So I said, I know what I'll do. I'll do the oldest trick in the book, and I'll show all the happy campers, and then the buzzing sound, and then, cut away. And then we cut back, everybody's laying dead on the ground. Because I could afford to do the makeup and the dead, stuff. So I called all the family and friends and everything, and got them all out there, and then, so everybody's brother was out there, we put everybody in makeup and laid everybody on the ground, and, they're all like blood everywhere and stuff. And we're in a park, and we did have a permit. I think we might have paid like $10 for the permit or something. It's one of those activity permits you get if you go, when you have a family reunion at the park or whatever. And so we had people laying around, and it was a big scene, and we had very little money to make the movie, but one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to do the mosquito point of view chasing people. So I had seen a rig that was like a cable in a forest with guys on, a chair, like just sliding around. So I asked my buddy, I said, hey, do you think we could, you could just make up a little thing with some pulleys and we can just string a cable. So we strung this big cable up, and the cable we had like 300-400 foot, so I'm like, all right, cool, well, we'll spread all the bodies out over all the way through the woods, into somebody else's, obviously we didn't know, into someone else's area where they were having, some get together going on or something, so then we strung all these people out, and meanwhile we're setting stuff up, and, people were going over there to have a picnic, driving down the other, through the park the other way. And so we got our camera, and it's a great shot in the movie where the camera just floats over all the people and comes up on the end. But it was that kind of same situation. We hear someone screaming, we're setting up, you're ready to shoot, we hear someone screaming, what's going on? And I told everybody, all right, you're all laying dead, don't move, you know, you're gonna hear dialogue and stuff going on. So we just had people laying around, so people from the other side were kind of looking at your kids playing, they look through the woods and they see bodies laying around and stuff, so kind of, it was a similar funny thing. We didn't get the police didn't come out, but we had to go over there and say, oh, you know, we're filming the movie and everything, and I remember one of the fathers, the kids were all crying or whatever, and the father was all mad, and I said, all right, why don't you guys want to be in the movie? So I got like maybe another 15, 20 extras from that. You know, could have been, you know, not a happy situation, so they come over and we made them all up like bloody makeup, and they laid on the ground, and they were in the movie. And I made a point, too, to try to give everybody that got close-up stuff credit in the movie, you know, dead, you know, or campground extras, you know. But, so I think one of the keys of independent, and that was an independent film, we had no idea we'd sell it. I always thought I'd sell it, you know, oh, we'll sell it for $1 million. It's a mosquito movie, mosquito, $1 million, we'll sell it for $1 million, you know. And I sold all the investors and partners on it, you know, it had never been done, giant mosquitoes. And, but it was one of those things that's like, when an independent film, you know, you just have to pull things together. And you got to be really resourceful, and you have to turn those negatives into positives, as you know, or have a comedian on board, but that's the right line to say. But I find that it happens all the time. You know, something goes wrong, or location doesn't work, or you know, actor bails out, or something. And one of the tough things, but I find it as a challenge in independent filmmaking, is you have to figure out a way to keep it going. You have to use what's there. You know, you can't change it. But you got to turn it into an advantage. And so I think, like, you know, when you come up with your story, your film, you've got to have some loose ends, meaning you could go a little bit different direction, play the scene a little longer, or, you know what, maybe I'll have that subplot be a little stronger. Because you can always cut it out later, even though you don't want to cut anything out. But I always found that, I was always worried my films would be short. So, and now, of course, I'm always cutting 20 minutes out and getting hollered at. Like, 20 minutes, you know, but I always kind of explore different things. So I found, like, happy accidents, you turn them into your, you know, into your favor. You're trying to make them work. Like you said, the cops show up and it's like, hey, maybe you get the cops in the background driving away, you know, get an extra shot. We did we were working on this one scene, and I had to blow some stuff up, and we built a farmhouse. At the end of the movie, the farmhouse is filled with mosquitoes and it blows up, and I wanted to do you know, this big giant shot, so we built a huge, like 10, 12-foot miniature farmhouse. And it took us all day to rig it, and I had rigged it with all explosives and stuff. And this was 1993, and I had pyrotechnician's licenses back then. It was a different world back then. I mean, you could literally go and buy black powder and get all that stuff. You can't really do that now. But I rigged all this thing to blow up, and we realized, well, we're in this field, and it's like, we got to put this out. So I was not going to call the police or fire department, because we were, it's a friend of mine, it was in his backyard, and it was a huge field, and the neighbors were miles away. And I was like, I didn't want to get shut down, you know, because I figured they wouldn't let me do this. And we're thinking, oh man, what are we going to do? And then my buddy said, hey, I know a guy who works at the fire department, local fire department. So we go, all right, well, maybe we just inform him. And I thought, no, let's get him to come out with the fire truck. Because we had garden hoses, you know, we were going to bring him out there and do this. But we had the guy to come out from the fire department, and we made sure we had extra dinner for him. So, you know, he got the dollar burger too, like the rest of us did. And he sat there at the fire truck till 3 in the morning, and we blew this thing up, and it was huge. If you've seen it in the movie, I mean, just massive fireballs, stuff flying everywhere. We could have never put it out with the fire hoses. It was that big. And I remember it went off, and the fireman sitting on the truck goes, holy shit. And he goes, that was great. That was effing great, right? And so he brings out the fire hose and he put it out. So it was one of these things where we weren't going to do it, because I thought, we'll just do it, you know, I'd get shut down. And I thought, you know, we got garden hoses here. This is pretty big. So we took the chance, and it was really the right thing to do. So I'd say, if you try to do anything crazy, you're always better to go tell them, get the permits. And they showed up with the fire truck, and it cost me $1 for a burger. And they put that fire out, and the field fire that was happening after the house blew up. So, happy accidents.
Yeah, the one thing that I've noticed is kind of a side note to that, work in small towns.
Small towns love you.
Yeah, that's it exactly. You know, the bigger the city, the more, you know, bureaucratic it becomes, the more complicated it gets. a lot of times you can do it with a, hey, how you doing, a handshake and a 12-pack of Guinness, and they'll let you do whatever you want.
And put them in the movie.
Yeah.
Have them be extras. They'll let you use their stores and everything else.
I mean, I got for that funeral scene, I got a beautiful picturesque cemetery with the great big monuments and great big trees that had been there for centuries. I mean, just beautiful, perfect day. I was talking to the caretaker, he's the one I set it up with. I said, he brought it up actually. He says, well, do you have a casket? I said, no, do you? And he said, none that are not being used. And I felt kind of uncomfortable about putting that kind of a prop in front of my movie. He said, well, look, I know somebody who works at the funeral home down the street. He's a really good guy. I'll bring you a casket. So he shows that, I show up. I got
empty casket.
Empty casket. Made sure of that. It was nice and light, we were sure.
Otherwise, you'd have to give some screen credit to someone.
Right. But he brought the casket, and I got to tell you, this thing, I would have been proud to display this in my living room. It was a beautiful piece of furniture with the brass fittings. We're talking like $12,000 a casket here. And he was kind of mad at me that since it was for a cop's funeral, that I had to drape a flag over it. You couldn't see the casket. But then, of course, I have the cops folding the flag, so you do get to see the casket. But, so for a 12-pack of Guinness, I got that location. And then, of course, I did have to pay the cops, but, by just treating them respectfully, I had the cops, I had the location, all the people there. It's amazing what you can get in a small town for little or no money.
And don't forget, give them a screen credit at the end of the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody loves credit.
Thanks a lot, everybody, for coming.